fellow objective personality enthusiasts. So I want to talk about something that's been on my mind a bit lately, and that is how IJ types relate to freedom. And I've been thinking about this a lot, especially in the time of the COVID pandemic. And I don't want to get too controversial or political here because I know that COVID is a hot button issue for people. But I think there tends to be some differences in how IJ types may handle the COVID crisis and EP types handle the COVID crisis and how they're interpreting freedom. So as an IJ, I kind of believe that it is, it's kind of a necessity to wear masks in public, social distance between people, and people should get vaccines. And I know that not everybody thinks the way I do. I know that as an IJ, and especially as an IJ blaster, I kind of see it as, we have this structure in place so that we can ensure security for people, the OI, and doing these things also benefits the tribe, the DE. I'm not spreading COVID to other people, and I'm making, this a more secure place for everybody. Now, to me, that perspective seems so obvious, but the EP types especially, they may see that as being the opposite, like this is impinging on our freedom, you can't control us. And I think especially EPs with Savior DI, they don't want to be told what to do because they it's got to be my decision and what's in it for me. And not that they don't think about the tribe necessarily, but like an EP lead consume might be more of a secondary thing. And as an IJ, lead blast, I kind of have the opposite perspective. And at first, I'll be honest and say I kind of had a hard time understanding my opposite. And I think understanding the human needs in objective personality kind of really helped me to better see the opposite side. Because I think in the end, we all want freedom. This coronavirus pandemic isn't fun for anybody. I think at the end of the day, we just all want this pandemic to be done with and not have to think about it and resume our lives, So kind of about the freedom here, okay? Now, everybody wants freedom. We all want, options and feel like we can choose between different options. We're not always locked into one thing. We can kind of do what we want when we want to do it. But I think for the IJ, yeah, that's important, but it's not enough in itself. I think the IJ also needs to have that security in place first, and that's going to be their top priority. Because let's say I'm able to go out to this restaurant, or I can go to this big festival, even in the time of the pandemic. Let's say there's no restrictions in place. I don't have to wear a mask. The options are there, but do I want to do them if I don't feel safe and secure? If there's going to be unwanted chaos coming at me, in this case, getting the coronavirus or giving it to somebody else, and then I got to deal with that mess. And, that's not freedom for the IJ. That's not freeing because, that's just going to restrict you if you got to have all this unwanted chaos you got to deal with and put out these fires. And so I think for the IJ, we need to have that safety and security and in place first before we can really fully experience that freedom. And I think sometimes EPs may have a harder time kind of seeing it that way, because I think EPs might be more like, well, you're never going to have total certainty. You just got to, take opportunities as they come. You can adapt as you go along. You might die tomorrow. Let's live for today. And so they're kind of coming at it from the different perspective, because for them, they will kind of gather all this experience first, and then they can organize it all later. And in the IJ, it's the other way around. The freedom comes from the sense of security. Once I'm secure, then I can feel free to go ahead and gather stuff. Now, I'm kind of speaking in generalities here. I'm kind of being anecdotal when I say that IJ types are the ones more, and especially the IJ blasters are the ones that are more likely to advocate, everybody should wear their mask, we should all social distance, people should get the vaccine as soon as they're eligible to and not put it off. And EPs might be more likely to say, well, the government shouldn't control you, it should be your freedom of choice. But of course there's exceptions. I know plenty of EP types that are all for, these mandates by the government and, masking and social distancing and vaccines. They may not be happy about the restrictions, but they might see, why they're needed, or maybe, there's an appeal to their, OE function. Well, if you do those things, you'll be able to gather more eventually. And I know some IJ types too that are more anti-mask or anti-vax vaccine, because maybe it's just not in their IJ box to do that, and it's some unwanted change. So even though their behavior might be kind of risky, they still may not want to do it. So yeah, I realize that I'm being kind of anecdotal here, but I do think that there is a general pattern as to how, people of different human needs are responding to the COVID pandemic crisis, and how they're interpreting freedom. And because I know for me, if I'm going to be in a situation, even though I have a lot of options at my disposal, if it's going to cause a lot of unwanted chaos, if I'm going to have to spend all this time straightening things out and fighting fires, it's not freedom to me. That's restrictive. And I'm just curious if other IJ types kind of see it that way. And this idea, it's not just the COVID pandemic, but for me, it extends to all facets of my life. Like jobs, for example. There's hundreds and thousands of possible jobs and careers that I could do, and, but for me, it's like I can't enjoy a new career or a new pathway if I realize that it's not going to be secure enough. I have to have that security in place. I have to know that I'm going to get decent pay. I need to know that this is a job that I can likely stay at for the long term, that I'm not going to get laid off, that I'm going to pass my probationary period. I kind of need to have that information in place, because otherwise, if I don't feel secure, I'm not going to enjoy my job if I always have to worry about security. It doesn't, it could even be my dream job. I'm not going to fully be able to enjoy it. And I'm certainly not going to be able to fully feel free without that security. Same thing with my relationships in life. I look at long-term security as, as a big factor in my relationships, even though I know theoretically I could, there's millions of people out there that I could, potentially have a long-term relationship with or marry. I'm lucky, that I have all those options available to me, because some people in the world don't. But if there's no sense of security, if it's just going to be chaos, it's not freedom to me. Because for me, if a choice isn't viable to my OI, it's like that choice doesn't even exist. Like traveling, for example. Now, I love to travel, and maybe this is kind of atypical for an IJ on the surface, but I think if you look at it more closely, when I make travel plans, I make sure that things are aligning with my OI. Like, I make sure that I'm going to have a place to stay every night of my trip. I make sure that I can financially afford it, and figure out how long I'm going to be gone, how much I'm going to spend each day, and then save some extra because there might be some unexpected situation that forces me to stay in longer than was planned. And if I'm going to a foreign country, for example, can I navigate the language barrier? If the official language in that country is different than English, can I find people that speak my native language, or could I at least learn enough to be able to get by, to ask for the bathroom, to order food? And, I think that's important. And I think about those things. I'm not just somebody that's going to travel across the globe and just move all my stuff and just say goodbye to where I live and not have a job lined up or anything, and just go by myself. I can't do that. That would be too much chaos to navigate, even though I have that option available to me. Now I know it's a little more complicated, in the times of the pandemic, like I may not be allowed to go to certain places, but assuming that we're in a pandemic-free world, I mean, I could probably go almost anywhere, but I probably wouldn't, because I would have to have that OI in place first. So for me, when I say I love to travel, it's making sure that my OI is in place, and that it's like I'm taking in something that's kind of different, okay? Because everybody likes variety, but there's still enough in my OI box so that I feel secure. So 2 weeks ago, my parents and I, we took a vacation to Colorado and New Mexico, and we loved seeing, the different scenery, like the mountains and the desert, and just the different landscape than what I'm used to in the state of Minnesota. But there were still things that were in my OI box. I mean, it's still in the United States. The people still speak English. Culturally, most things are similar to where I live. I can do the basic things. Order food, ask for the bathroom. I'm not going to have this huge culture shock. There might be some, unique local foods. And it's fun to try the local foods, but if I don't like the local foods, I mean, there's always restaurants that are the same back home that I can fall back on. And so that's kind of what it's like for me when I travel. It's like, yeah, there's something different out there, but it's not so different that it's going to be a total shock to my system and cause a huge tidal wave. If anything, it would just be a small ripple that I could adjust to. So yeah. So I'm kind of curious as to how you interpret freedom. what's your dominant human need? Are you an IJ or an EP? Or maybe you're a double observer, EJ and IP, and you're kind of balanced between the control and the chaos. What does freedom mean to you? Yeah, please write that in the comments. If you like my video and you want to see more videos from me, please subscribe to my channel, hit that bell button for notifications. And just so you know, I plan in the short future to do a video series kind of introducing the basic concepts of objective personality. I kind of want to make a beginner series to make this more accessible to wider audiences. You know, maybe for people that can't afford to take the objective personality class by Dave and Shannon, or they're just overwhelmed by all this material out there and they don't know where to start. Yeah, that's going to be a project I'm going to be starting really soon. So, yeah, bye.